What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the StayWeighedIn podcast. I'm joined with my man Sugar Ray. How are you doing, man?
I am tired at the scales like George Kambosos was on Friday. It was a long night of boxing. Very good boxing. A lot of gold that we're going to speak about. Another Undisputed, which has just been a fantastic year. So let's get into it.
I was going to say that's exactly what we're here. We are talking about Kambosos and Haney. But before we do that, if you are enjoying the content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, share it, drop a little comment, hit the notification bell as well, and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all of the latest episodes and videos that we are bringing out. But with the formalities done, let's get straight into this particular fight. George Kambosos Jr., Devin Haney, all the belts, and it was as one-sided as it could possibly be. I think the best way for me to describe this particular fight is in 3 letters: the jab. I think Devin Haney, from round one, came out, set the motion, controlled it with the jab, and I felt like Kambosos couldn't do anything to nullify it. There was points where he would be able to land his shots in. But for the majority of the fight, it looked like Devin Haney was so in control. And that game plan that him and his dad had talked about worked to perfection. Did you kind of get a similar idea of that?
I think it was just a case of, obviously, a lot of people were saying before this, Haney's going to go and outclass him. And he done just that. He fought like Money Mayweather in the hit and not get hit. But the... is a weird one. Like he does very well neutralizing everything. Like I said, he worked off the jab. Some people called it a bit anticlimactic because obviously it was a big occasion. I think 60,000 seat stadium, 40,000 in attendance. Obviously, in the beginning of the week, there was a lot of hype regarding the whole rat comment, and you can tell that Kambosos was just trying to stir more attention, but it didn't fluster Haney. In the end, his dad also made it to Australia and got his visa approved last minute.
It's good.
I got cut off there like Kambosos did from Haney. But yeah, I guess it was just a case of a shout out from Haney, but it wasn't the most eventful shout out. It was like very fundamental, good boxing. It wasn't the most slick. It wasn't like a Shakur Stevenson who had a bit of like movement and razzmatazz to it, but Haney done what he needed to get done. At the end of the day, is it good to be entertaining? Yes, but even better to be the winner. And that was Devin, 23 years old. I believe youngest ever undisputed champion. So what an achievement.
I was going to say, you kind of nailed it a bit in the sense that I think the occasion was better than the actual fight.
Yeah.
And with that, there was a thing about the rematch.
Oh, please, no.
It looks like, with all intents purposes, that obviously everything relates to George Kambosos enforcing the rematch and stuff. So if he was to do it, is it a smart decision to actually go ahead and put this rematch on? And if it is, because of how one-sided the first fight was, is there going to be as much interest in this particular fight?
Absolutely not. I'm not trying to be funny. That was a shutout victory. Some people gave it 11 rounds to 1 to Haney. Some people even pushed it and said, some people even pushed it and said, listen, this was potentially 12-0. So with that, how are you going to cram a whole bunch of people into a stadium? Bear in mind, people, this is not an arena. This is a stadium. And to like try cram it with a bunch of people that didn't really care. I think maybe the best thing to happen if they can still put in a contract is let Haney face someone else and then face Kambosos again in a rematch maybe at the end of his contract, because to do a rematch straight away, they're not going to garner any attention. I think Kambosos could do with like a win in Australia just to captivate his audience again, just to be like, bring someone in that's like maybe just past it, but still got a big enough name at lightweight get that attention up again, and then say, cool, I'm ready, I'm back, I'm in better shape, my mind's clear, and then come back and face Haney again. But to do it straight away, they're going to lose out on a lot of money, because there's no way that I can see that pay-per-view doing well, especially with the way that Haney fought. Like I said, he just shuts you down. He shuts everything down. You won't get your offense off, and you're just going to get picked by a jab throughout the whole fight. I don't know how you're going to market that, to be honest.
I was going to say one thing. One thing you said is that this stadium doesn't feel like it's the right venue for
Yeah.
the fight. Was the fight happening during the afternoon in Australia a bit of a problem, because it didn't, as much as the event felt like it, because of where it was. I'm not even necessarily where it was, because of the timing of it. Did they get the timing of this fight wrong? I know it hit both markets,
Yeah,
geographically, but being that it was in the afternoon, I don't personally think that it worked as well.
I don't know if that's the issue more than it is the fact that you've got two personalities that are very different. Kambosos is a very intense, gritty, grinder out fighter, whereas Haney is a very calm, finesse, fundamentals type of fighter. So marketing wise, you're just not going to get the explosiveness that you see to garner attention. And in fight wise, when the skill gap is that deep, it's just like, what can you do? When situation like that happens, you normally need a character to bring it out of the audience to capture their imagination, like the Rolly first Davis fight, for example. Those were always gonna say, "Hey, Davis is gonna go in there and blow out Rolly," but Rolly made it interesting. Now, that's not to say I want Kambosos to be a caricature, because I wasn't liking his whole mafioso look he was doing at the beginning of the week, and then the weak excuse that he had for missing weight and saying the art of deception. I'm like, the funny thing is, he told Teofimo that them belts have poisoned you, and like it's got your mind moving mad. And then it's almost like the same thing happened to Kambosos. It's like the ring in Lord of the Rings. Like as soon as you get that ring, you start moving like Gollum. So I don't know, man. It's just like, how do you? It was a big event. I'm sure for Kambosos, this is a big payday. So then why is a big payday for Kambosos? So it's like, why would you wouldn't turn down the rematch? It's not like Canelo Bivol situation where Canelo is this big star, so he's going to get paid regardless. Kambosos knows that this is that once in a lifetime money that he's getting. He's going to want that one more time just to set himself up. But how are you also going to do that when you can't market it? So we'll go, I don't know, we'll see what happens.
And I think one thing we can say, though, is as much as Devin Haney's style is the way it is, his marketability and the fights he can get domestically now are there. So I guess with Haney, what's next for him? Let's say if this rematch doesn't happen, I know people talking tank and stuff. Is that, I guess, another logical fight? I know Ryan Garcia tweeted out boring in this particular fight as well, but I think he's not one to speak personally. But where would you go for someone like Devin Haney now? Does he want this particular rematch, knowing how easy this fight was for him, or does he want to push on towards getting another domestic fight where he can like light up the Vegas Strip, as they say?
Here's my options. You either go the Loma route, depending if Loma can, be afforded in this case is a luxury to come out of the situation that is in with the Ukraine at the moment. So obviously, I froze again. Obviously, Loma's got the issue in Ukraine at the moment, so it might be difficult to make that fight. In the States, he's still got 2 more fights on the top rank. So one thing he might be good at doing is if he goes up and he gets a belt at 140, just a one-off. Because I know sometimes what happens is that if you've got a belt from the lower division and you go up in some boards, you can get a mandatory. So that might be a good thing for Haney if he's at top rank. I know they've got a lot of the belts at 140 through Josh Taylor. Go up to 140, grab a belt, or or you just run down your top rank contract and face Davis. Don't listen. Let's ignore Ryan Garcia because I don't know who's got a better dealer, him or Oscar De La Hoya. Because I don't half the stuff he says makes no sense. You was mandatory for Danny WBC's title twice, and you ducked him. Let's not like pussyfoot around this. He ducked him because even Jojo Diaz, who lost to Haney in his last fight, even said you're beating guys that I beat. Like, you are supposed to be fighting for the belt how long ago? Stop talking. Like, it's just ridiculous. So obviously, listen, man, if you want a money fight, all roads leads to Davis, but Davis was at PBC/Showtime. So maybe it's a case of Haney runs down his contract, goes to PBC, and then he joins PBC on like a free fight deal, the same as at Top Rank, and then he faces Davis. Haney faces Davis, and then they have a big money fight there for all the belts. And with Davis being a show like big pay-per-view star in America, that's the only way I can see it. But Haney's in a tricky position now where he's a great fighter, but marketing-wise, he could do with some work.
I was just gonna say though, with this particular fight, the Top Rank Bob Arum, they nailed it out of the park in terms of the promotion side. And I know one other little fighter that is making his trip, arguably over to PBC, who used to be at Top Rank. So it looks like it can happen. But with that, we are going to wrap up today's episode of the StayWeighedIn podcast. This has been our recap of Kambosos Haney. And with that, guys, as always, stay weighed in.